Okay guys, here's the question of the day. Some of us are intimately familiar with this specification, and it dictates marine propeller shaft tapers, threads, keyways, undercuts, fillet radius, all manner of things. There is also a metric standard which deals with a taper angle of 10:1. The SAE standard deals with 12:1 and 16:1, otherwise represented as 3/4 of an inch per foot of taper and 1 inch per foot. The question though is, on the left is our, what we might call our standard SAE taper and thread pitch, undercut. It's got the cotter pin hole. That's fine. The $1 million question is, what standard is this? And what leads me to believe that it's standard is that there's been a heck of a lot of shafts over the years that have been nearly identical to this insofar as the thread diameter and thread pitch used with a taper diameter. They all get a safety hole bored in the end of the shaft, and a acorn or cap style nut gets installed. One single nut gets installed, draws the propeller up home, and then there's a hole in the end of the cap nut or acorn nut that allows you to then put a stud into this tapped hole, and then two nuts on top of that, two small nuts that form a locking arrangement or jam nut to keep the main propeller nut from rattling off. Generally speaking, these are all formed without the undercut. The SAE standard does call for an undercut, and they do call for a radius. However, many of the shafts that I've seen are missing that radius in the undercut, and to no detriment. The other mystery standard, generally speaking, the men that created them seemed to either start or stop just as you would a thread form on a bolt or a stud. There is no undercut. They just came up and stopped, or vice versa. Many of these are left-hand thread, some of them aren't. It doesn't seem to matter. To my knowledge, the SAE standard does not require them to be either left or right hand. These generally will have a finer thread pitch than the SAE standard. So if any of you know, I'd be very curious to know. You'll see these in both 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch to the foot tapers, and there's even some crazy random tapers that likely are just chasing a worn out propeller hub. You know, at some point they had to replace the shaft and they had a prop that was still serviceable, and so they just copy the wallered out taper in the propeller hub and try their best to get it to fit somehow. So what do you guys see in your neck of the woods, or what do you know? Does anybody know if this is an old British Admiralty standard or US Navy standard perhaps? They all seem to have imperial thread pitches and forms and what have you, you know, inch size shafting. So really don't see a lot of metric shafting. So anyway, I'd love to hear from you. This is just the question of the day, food for thought. Thanks.